So, when did you start directing productions? I know you said like in the 90s, but
Yeah.
where was that in kind of your acting journey?
Well, here's the last big thing I did in New York was that I really made substantial money. Anyway, it was around 1996. And so my second child was 6 months old. And so, again, remember I told you about the log ride of life? So
Yeah.
everything changed because our first child got a really horrible disease. And it was an orphan disease, meaning it didn't get any government funding. And at the time,
Mhm.
it was considered rapidly fatal. Well, I mean, being a mother was more important to me than acting. Being a mother
Yeah.
was the most important thing I'd ever done, although we were working it out so I could still have those moments with my two kids. I was a full-time mom, but I still acted,
Yeah.
as I could. But because of that disease, it just changed everything. And so my priority pretty much for the next 6 years was making sure I did everything I could so that my little boy stayed alive. And
Yeah.
that was a time period, I'll tell you. But we also were blessed. We had stair-step children. So even in this heartbreak, and my son is still alive, and he's a wildland firefighter in Northern California. As I speak right now, he is fighting a fire. So, miracles do
Oh, wow.
happen. Yeah. But that changed the trajectory of my life for that season. I missed it, but I always loved it. But I knew that I needed to focus on being a mother. And so the Lord blessed us with 3 children, and then 4 children, and then 5 children. And so at any rate, and then ultimately 6 children. But as I had kids, that became my priority, and I wanted to pass along my love of theater to them and of acting, because it's the best thing in the world. I mean, it's what I had to offer. So I was homeschooling my children, and because of that, I started directing. I started a theater company where we did Shakespeare. We'd do Shakespeare for children, and then we would travel around and perform it as Shakespeare did, because he was a traveling company, initially. And so I would create the same experience that sort of Shakespeare's company had to a degree with these kids. And so I did it. That's why I did it. I would teach acting and Shakespeare classes to the parents. And then with the kids, I would produce a play, and we'd travel around. We would do it at parks and churches and community centers and stuff like that. And so then in my child, part of my strange story, but also my testimony, is that because my first son almost died, just in 6 years I spent in and out of hospitals, I have a special talent, my husband and I, in caring for sick children, shall we say. And so our 5th child, we adopted a medically fragile little baby who's 15 now, but we just felt a calling to do that because it's not a talent that everybody has, I guess. So we adopted this little person, and from a hospital room, I was hired at a school. They wanted a theater program, and they wanted someone that could teach Shakespeare and could do Shakespeare. Wow. So that's how I got that job. And I was fortunate to work at schools that would accommodate my schedule and my children. And as my children grew, they transitioned, they would go to the schools where I taught. But